It's Friday Coffee with your mortgage man, Eric. And today, man, it's been a while, right? It has been a long time since I've been on here. It is what it is. Things get caught up in life. Nonetheless, let's hop right into it. What's going on with the market? People ask me that all the time. Eric, what's going on with rates? Where are they? Why do they keep going up? When are they going to come down? What's driving this, right? So let's dive into it. And first thing, that I'm going to admit that, some of my projections that I've had in the last 6 months, 12 months, that we would have seen, the recession come on by now, by second, third quarter of 2023, obviously didn't happen. And there's some debate on, will we even see a recession? Will we just go to a recovery mode in the business cycles of the economy? Which I guess could be, is potential. It could happen. I still don't think so. I still think we're headed for a recession. It's just been delayed. And let me explain why it's been delayed. And some of it is due to some of the new classifications and rulemaking that we've had since the pandemic, right? We had a number of programs that came out during the pandemic that made it easier for people to make payments, to get caught up. You could be delinquent longer than any other time in credit history, and it still wasn't considered defaulted. They didn't come after you, right? So we are still dealing with some of those things. I'm going to get into some of those facts here in just a moment. Some states, a little different than other states. Let's talk about foreclosures. Right now, we should be seeing another 180,000 foreclosures on the market, nationally speaking, but we don't, and that's because of some of the moratoriums and workout loans, forbearance programs, forgiveness programs. There's a number of these programs with nice little neat names to them. Some were federally mandated, but are really no longer in place. So some of the states have taken some of those programs over and have given some protection to some of the homeowners. The downside to that is you have people in homes that have been in the home for a year, 2 years, 3 years that have not made a mortgage payment, and they can't be foreclosed upon, right? And that presents several problems. What if you were the person that was the bank on it, right? What if you were floating that note? What if you were doing a seller carryback and you haven't got a mortgage payment or a rent payment, right, in 3 years, but you couldn't foreclose? That could potentially take you under. So, and plus what we know is that there are so many people out there that could qualify for the home loan for that particular property, that could be making the payment, a performing loan, but we have some of these protections that are going on. So it's cooking the books as well, right? We're not getting a fair shake. We're not seeing real numbers. Hard to believe that one, right? In this post-pandemic world, over 3 years later. But that's where we're at. You're seeing some states, 2 years down the road, the person hasn't made a mortgage payment and they can't get them out. Same thing with some rent payments. Like if you were a person that owned a rental property and you've got tenants in there that haven't made a payment and you can't boot them out, puts you in a precarious situation as well. So we still see a lot of that going on. Let's dive into some of the other loan issues, some of the other credit issues, right? Let's talk about student loans. We know that that's a disaster right now with the federal government trying to find an end around to forgive a portion of these student loans. The problem is that the message out there, everyone thinks that their student loans are just going to go bye-bye, right? They're going to be gone as soon as they pass it. Why aren't they passing it? My student loans are going to be gone. It's like, no, it's only going to be for a fraction. Like a fraction of people would only be eligible for that if it even finally does come around, regardless of what your feelings are on student loan forgiveness, on what your opinion is on that. Only a percentage of them, but that's not what the public hears, right? So what do we have? What's happening there is that nobody's making their loans, their loan payments. But in this interim period, over 3 years since the pandemic, everybody's kind of, okay, you're fine to not make a payment until we find out what's going on. So, I mean, you have trillions of dollars in student loan debt that isn't being, paid. I mean, we're just kicking this can down the road as well, where they should be defaulted if you're not making the payment. And take this into consideration. Even if we were in normal times, before a student loan company, servicing company considers you defaulted, you got to be late 270 days, 9 months. Think about that. Absurdity. I mean, again, if you were lending somebody money and they didn't pay you for 270 days, how would you feel about that, right? That's a long time before the books, actually counted as defaulted. So it's like we're cooking the books, man. We're kicking the can down the road. We're not calling a spade a spade. We're not calling something defaulted when it has been defaulted. So what does that do, right? I mean, these credit companies, Visa, MasterCard, Chase, B of A, people like that extend credit to people, their books are not technically considering a debt defaulted until much later, when it really is. So the books are being cooked. So talk about auto loans. So auto loans are now at about 90 days before they're technically considered defaulted. Before pandemic, like it was, if you were 5 days late, they could start coming after you, and usually 30 days. If you went 30 days late on an auto loan, very well there could be the tow truck out there grabbing it from you at work, the repoing it, right? Today's world, not really happening until you're about 90 days late. Credit cards, here's the thing that's puzzling, right? Is credit cards. I see the credit card debt that is just crazy high, and people are not making those payments as well. But it's 180 days before they're allowed to consider it defaulted on the books. 180 days. And they send out these notices and workouts and forbearance and just make this payment. Well, whatever you owe, we'll put on the back end. Just start making the payments again. And there's all this soft workaround problems. Now, some of you, well, what if you truly need that? I get that, but here's the thing what people don't realize is that if we called a spade, if we defaulted when somebody defaulted, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now with hyperinflation, runaway inflation. And when are interest rates going to stop rising? This is crazy. Well, we've got to get to a recession or a recovery period for them rates to come back down. And when you keep kicking the can down the road and you're not foreclosing on homes and you're not calling defaulted debt, everybody thinks everything's fine. The market, Wall Street, all these books are being cooked. And that's what I mean. I mean, at some point we're going to have to pay the piper on this, right? It just, before the pandemic, most of this stuff, it was defaulted. You went 30 days late, they could start foreclosure proceedings, depending on the state. Some judicial states, it was 120 days, but still, it wasn't 2 years. They were foreclosing. And we were turning that property. We were putting somebody back in that property. We were rehabbing it, somebody that was going to make the payments, right? We're not there yet. And I think, in my opinion, that's what has created the delay on this recession. But at some point, the cards are going to collapse, right? And that's my opinion. Now, here's what they're saying. Second quarter of 2024 is when they're projecting, the financial gurus of the market, right? The Goldman Sachs and Blackstone and, State Street and all the big players that are managing trillions of dollars in debt, Warren Buffett, right? All these guys, Berkshire, all these guys, entities are now saying, looking like second quarter of 2023, before the Fed is going to have their first rate reduction to the Fed rate, which is interesting. So, I hope it happens before that. And again, foreclosures are healthy for the market. I understand that it's a terrible event for a family to go through, but as an economy as a whole, for helping us out with this hyperinflation and the ridiculous cost of taking your family of four to McDonald's and you're spending $48, right? To feed your family of four at McDonald's. Where have we gone? It's crazy. You go to a decent hamburger place, you're with a tip, you're lucky to get out of there under $100 for a family of four. That's where we're at. It's insanity where we're going. Now, locally here, housing market, listings are down 37% according to the Cromford report. People say, well, why is that? Well, here, my opinion on that is that who wants to sell when you have a 2.875 interest rate, 3.25% interest rate? Your housing obligation, your housing payment's pretty low right now. Why in the world would you want to move? You're set. So that is probably what's keeping listings down and the movement of property down, inventory down. Is that why would you move? If I move up in a home or whatever, different neighborhood, we're gonna go to a 4-bedroom instead of 3, or a 5-bedroom instead of 4, whatever it is, and you're gonna be financing. My goodness, dude, we're taking on a much higher rate than what we used to have. And why would you want to do that if you don't have to do that? So that's my opinion on why we're seeing listings that are way down. Market median sales price this time last year, we're down a smidgen, I think about 3%. But we're in this weird market here in Phoenix metropolitan area where we just don't have a lot of inventory. So it's possible that you could still be bidding full price, a little over full price on some of the homes, depending on location and what pocket of the valley that you're in. I see that from time to time. I'd say the majority of the files that come through my office is full price, and I'd say 75% of them are getting some seller concessions. Not ridiculous 5% seller concessions, 1 or 2%. That's the majority of what's coming across my desk and coming through my office. Anyhow, that's the scoop. Second quarter of 2024, it looks until we're going to have any reprieve on interest rates. Unfortunately, the sooner the better. And with that said, it's Friday Coffee, your mortgage millionaire. 602-757-2171. See you.